And with the music over, that tells us it's time to start talking. So, welcome to When Banks Say No, the podcast. I'm Boyd Karen. This is,
Karol Gavada.
and we are the core of Otro Financial here in Melbourne, Florida. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Karol, buen dia.
Buen dia.
You have a question for me.
Yes, that's right. Well, the theme or the name of our podcast is When Banks Say No. So bring us back, please. Tell us about the story where the circumstances that happens when banks say no to you.
When the bank said no to me specifically?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Not a painful memory at all. All right. So this was several years ago, about 5.5 years ago. We were during the pandemic, actually, looking for. I was trying to start another business. I've started or purchased 7 different businesses in my career, and so I was looking for another business to start. And my wife said to me, "Hey, how about this time instead of starting a business, let's buy one that already has customers and already has revenue." And I thought, well, okay, it's pretty hard to dismiss that advice. And so I agreed. I said, okay, this time we're going to buy something. And so I immediately began looking for something to buy. Spend a lot of time on bizbuysell.com. There's a lot of business acquisition minded people do. I got connected with an excellent broker, business broker out of Orlando, who listened to me and spent the time, trying to understand what I was looking for and what my skill set was and what my purchase budget was. And really spend a lot of time looking for something to buy. Finally, actually, on my wife's birthday, I found a business for sale that I thought really felt right. And as I tell the story, it felt like 2 hands reached out of the screen and grabbed me by the collar and said, "Hey, you need to look at this." And it was for a CPR medical training center that had been around for 20 years already. So they had a big book of business, lots of repeat customers, and they wanted to retire. And so I thought, well, that's perfect. That's the kind of business you want, where someone has grown it and now they're ready to retire and they just need someone to keep it going and put their expertise into it. And so we made an offer and they accepted it, and we beat out several other people with our offer. And just like with real estate, once you have an offer that's accepted by the seller, you have a certain period of time then, if you need to get a loan, you have a certain period of time then to get that loan. And so I suddenly found I needed to get a business loan. And so I was actually still very, very new to Florida and to Brevard County, where we are now still, of course. And so I began calling all the banks that, go on Google and find the banks and community banks, large banks. Now, maybe this was because of the pandemic at the time. Maybe it just was the way they work. Nobody answered their phones. I couldn't get anybody to answer their phones. And I left so many voice messages, and nobody ever returned a single voice message. And so the whole old message I would leave was, hey, here's my name, and I'm buying a business. I'm under contract to buy a business, and my credit score at the time was like 820, and I had 25% cash to put down. The business itself was listed, I think, at 120. So I thought I'm a perfect candidate to get a business loan. But nobody called me back, and time was ticking, and we were coming up on the deadline for having our financing in place. And I knew there were other people wishing that I would fail because they wanted the business. And if I couldn't meet the obligation by a certain time, then the deal would fall apart and they could rebid and hopefully they could get the business. And I didn't want that to happen. So finally, just out of desperation, I kept calling and calling and calling. And a local banker here in the county, finally, she answered her phone. And I excitedly told her, who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm under contract, and I need this much money, and here's my credit score, and here's how much cash I have, and I've got lots of experience running businesses. I've got an MBA, da 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 da. So she listened to me, and finally just said, "Well, wait. How much did you say you need?" I did the math in my head, and I said, "Well, actually, I only need $90,000." And I thought I was doing myself a favor by reducing the amount of money I needed. I only need $90,000. And so she did that pause and she says, "Oh, well, that's just not a big enough loan for us to care about." And how do you react to that, right? I was shocked. And she said, "Yeah, it'd actually be easier for us to get you $1 million." And I said, "Well, I don't need $1 million and I can't afford $1 million. You know, what do I do?" And fortunately, I had the presence of mind to ask her if she knew of anybody who works on deals that are too small for her bank.
Mhm.
Because you go back to bizbuysell.com, you talk to any business broker, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of businesses for sale for under $200,000 or under $100,000. You think of franchise opportunities, there's plenty in the $200,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 category. And if 90,000 is too small for her, you know, I figured, well, first of all, I'm not the only guy dealing with this, but secondly, there's got to be somebody else making this money available for people. So I asked her, "Do you know anybody who can help me with a deal that's too small for you?" So she said, "Well, yeah, there's a guy, and he's called an alternative lender." I'd never heard the phrase before. I didn't care what it meant. This is somebody who can give me the money. This is someone I need to talk to. So she gave me the guy's contact information. I called him. He answered on the first ring, which normally you'd think that's really good, but you know, customer service is great, but then you also think, oh, these got nothing else to do. And so I immediately began to explain the situation, who referred me, what my situation was. And all he had to say was, "Yeah, Boyd, I'd get you the money." And I would have gone with him because I was out of time and I had no other options. I didn't think I had any other options. But then he launched into this hugely technical 45-minute long lecture about how the deal was going to be constructed and where the money was going to come from and what the payback terms were. And I'd bought houses before. I knew how mortgages worked. But this was so different and it was so intimidating to me as he described this process that finally I just hung up and I'm like, I can't move ahead. I'm intimidated. I'm confused. I don't understand how this financing option is supposed to work. And so fortunately, I have experience in capital raising and investment banking. And so I did call in a favor, and I was able to get the money I needed in time to buy that business. And then we had the business for 4 years. We grew it. We sold it last November for more than we paid for it, more than we bought it for. That's the dream. But I was very, very, very lucky because most entrepreneurs, when they get to that first no, they stop. If
Mm-hmm.
the bank says no, then they're like, "Oh, well, never mind." You know, the dream kind of stops. Um, so fortunately, I had the presence of mind to ask and got introduced to an alternative lender who scared the pants off me. And then I went back to a more traditional source and got a very friendly loan. But again, most people don't make it past that first no. And so after we got the new business purchased, I kept thinking on that and realized, okay, I lucked out. How many other people are out there like me dealing with this same problem?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do about it? And so I actually found a mentor, um, learned at his feet, and learned about this world of alternative banking, which is very necessary because there's such a huge grouping of businesses in the United States that kind of fall below the radar of the normal banks, the big banks, especially if you're a startup or you're under 2 years old. It's really hard to get a bank or a credit union to pay attention to you and give you any amount of money because you have no business history. And so fortunately, through this world of alternative lending, and I like to joke that we used to be called shadow bankers, which I thought sounded much cooler. But the world of alternative banking, we're able to get the money, and there are programs. There's private money, there's big bank money actually, which is ironic, that we can find and get into the hands of entrepreneurs who want to start or buy a business. So that particular bank told me no, and I took it very personally
Mm-hmm.
and decided to do something about it. And so since then, we've done, I don't know how many deals we've done, but many, many, many entrepreneurs now we've been able to help get the money they need to start their business or to grow their business. So many in that startup and less than 2-year mark.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Long answer, but they told me no, so that's what I did about it.
And that got me thinking, because according to Forbes magazine, in June 2023, approximately 80% of small businesses' loan requests are denied by large banks, and only
Yes.
71% are denied by small banks.
Yeah, the credit unions and the regional banks are a little more giving,
Mm-hmm.
but the big boys, yeah, they'll deny about 80%. Now
Wow.
that number's higher. That number's higher if you're a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very, very difficult for a startup to get money from the big banks, even from a regional bank. It's still 71%. That means 29%. They're only funding 29% of the requests.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Not easy. Not easy for startups.
No. So how long did it take to find the right business, and also so to give us an idea
Mm-hmm.
and to have that first loan really completely in your hands?
That is a great question. From the day I decided that this is what I was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
I finished my training with my mentor, and he gave me the green light to go ahead now and start doing deals. I think it took about 60 days before uh, before I got a deal. My first loan in place for somebody. It was a line of credit for a roofing company, actually. I had joined the Chamber of Commerce and was going to a little leads club where we'd go have breakfast once a week together. And one of the ladies in that group was a realtor,
Mm-hmm.
and it was her friend who owned the roofing company who needed a line of credit. And so she referred her friend to me, and we got that line of credit in place for her very quickly, and she was very grateful. So, because she had been told no, how many times, that was the big struggle. And honestly, Carol, and you know this now yourself, so many people will come to you and say, "Oh, I've had 5 banks say no to me. I can't get anybody to all the banks say no." And when we come through with money that nobody else is willing to get for them, that's a nice feeling.
It is.
That's a
It
nice
is.
feeling.
And we can hear those stories every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
So during this process, you decided to become a loan broker. So you became a business loan broker. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about.
Well, it's that I joke that that's the origin story behind the superhero. Wronged by the system, he became what he needed to be. Whatever. So that's my joke, is that I became the hero that I needed. I wish that I had known back when we bought the CPR business. But since then, becoming the business loan broker, and that's the my full-time job now for 3 years. Is helping to meet the needs, particularly of those startups or businesses under 2 years old, that the banks just don't pay a whole lot of attention to.
Great. And that is today what is called Otro, and is our focus right now. And it's pretty much the basis of what we talked about in all our presentations, your presentations, when we know how we can get the help for funding for startups, and especially those 2 years that are crucial. That is like the threshold to succeed in your business, and it's hard to get the money. So
Yeah, it is. And it's because there's just simply no history for the bank to look back on. We know that the banks like to loan on your past performance. And if you don't have any past performance, then how can they possibly lend any money to you? Generally, you have to be 2 years old for a bank to care. There are a couple of other groups that will let you be in business 1 year or 6 months, but still you have to have successful operations, profit and loss, even tax returns in some cases
Mm-hmm.
before they'll loan you money. And so that big problem is, well, I just want to start. I'm at day 0, or I haven't even incorporated yet, or I have an idea, or um, how do we get going if the bank has said no to us already? Well, that's specifically what we fill, is the trying to find solutions for those questions, those challenges that people have had as they get started.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very true. Now, this is a question that I love because I asked to you about a year or so ago, if
Mm-hmm.
no more. But wherever we go, when we have presentation, people
Mm-hmm.
are always drawn to the name
Yeah.
Otro Financial. So, and they always ask us, like, it's really a catchy name. How did you find that name Otro? And I know there is a little story behind that too, related to your daughter.
Yeah, with my daughter.
Yeah.
Um, well, as I was when I decided this is what we're doing, this was my next startup. Sorry, honey, but this was going to be my next startup. Um, I I have a lot of experience from years of marketing. I have a lot of experience in naming companies. I've named a dozen or more companies that are still bearing their names today.
Mhm.
And just thinking about the positioning, and alternative funding, was it alternativelending.com was already taken, or alternative financial was already taken. I was doing all these URL searches, and so when your first choice is taken, you start looking at alternatives. And I thought, well, this is funny because this is alternative lending. And having learned Spanish and being fluent in Spanish, I thought, okay, let's try some other words here, and tried Otro Financial, which I thought visually was interesting, and the URL was available. So I thought, okay, well, I'll grab that one. And then in just dealing with graphic design and just the name, it just kept coming up Otro, Otro, Otro.
Mhm.
Um, I had no specific intention in mind at the moment that it would attract Spanish-speaking audiences. I just thought it was a catchy name. And so this is where the story comes with my daughter Emma. Um, she is currently a business student. She's in college, majoring in business, and she had called me one night. I was on my way home from Port St. Lucie, I think, and she called me late at night. She says, "Hey, Dad, I'm doing an HR class right now, and I need to interview a business owner. Can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I still got 45 minutes before I get home. Hit me." And so she asked me all these questions about human resources and hiring and firing. And she says, so Dad, okay, last question. What kind of employee do you need to hire next? And I said, well, I could really use a Spanish speaking person who's familiar with processing loans. And I didn't realize at the time that she was kind of setting me up. And she's like, Dad, would you consider it an oversight that you have given you've given a Spanish name to your company, but don't have any Spanish speakers on staff? And I just joked, okay, this call's over, click. But I speak Spanish, and I up to that point had been handling all the applications and conversations in Spanish. But I knew that the next, the first official hire that I'd make had to be somebody native Spanish speaker to take that load off of me, just and give better service to our clientes. And
Mhm.
so that's when you came into the picture. Um,
Yes.
yeah, helping us out. So let me ask you one question without revealing the client's name. You called me last night and you said that one of our clients had some very good news. Tell us his story.
Oh, yes. And we're
Don't say his
being,
name. Don't say his name, but
no,
just
I
tell us.
won't.
Yeah,
I won't, but I'm truly happy. And I know we are truly happy for it was a team effort
yeah,
and it took a while.
yeah,
Maybe because he was so new for him coming from Puerto Rico and establishing a new business from zero.
yeah. A
Like,
startup.
yes, from
Yeah.
zero, and finding the location and trying to do like his business plans. So new for him because, as Latinos, we kind of do business different. And so he needed to learn his way here.
Hmm.
But he called me almost in tears and he really really, I ended up my day with a big smile because he was so grateful that he was able, after back and forth, being able to be approved for almost 1 million,
Yep.
almost 1 million, to start his new bakery that is a family
Yep.
owned in Puerto Rico, and he wanted to keep the traditions and in the long run turn it into a restaurant as well. So just love it. They're going to be situated in Orlando, and I can't wait to be with you in the ribbon cutting.
That's right. Yeah, we'll go to the ribbon cutting. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
So his story is unique because he has been running a very successful business in Puerto Rico for years.
Yeah.
Wanted to open in Florida, and the banks wouldn't talk to him
Nope.
because they're generally limited with their Spanish ability, honestly, and they just didn't want to bother dealing with the books and the way that they do business in Puerto Rico. And so we need to give a shout out also to Anthony
Yes.
for his incredible work as the SBA loan officer on this one. So he was patient and kind and long suffering, and did a great job to help our clients. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, he had to do like the extra job because all the documents needed to be translated, notarized. It took extra time, but it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. So that was a great win for us just last night, helping somebody that the banks had said no to multiple times, and instead of saying no, we said see,
See?
and we're able to get the money for him that he needed. So yeah. So when the banks say no, what do we say?
We say call Otro.
Call
Llama
Otro.
Otro.
That's right. A no from the bank is not the end of the road. It just means we're taking a different road, and we have many options that we can introduce you to. Find the right option, just to probably still be able to get you funded and get that business open. So,
and even when maybe it's no for that moment, we also can help to start our plan to repair that credit and help you going through and coming back stronger. Get ready for new options for funding. And so it's still not the end of the road.
Not the end of the road. So quickly before we wrap up, Karol, tell me, what are the 2 or 3 most common reasons someone's credit report is in bad shape?
Yes. First, of course, the credit score have been damaged due to inquiries, several inquiries.
Inquiries, yep. Too many inquiries.
So that's pretty common, and especially the overutilization in the credit cards when the cards are maxed up and haven't been paid. You need to have it below 30% of your credit limit. So
ideally, yes. Yep.
Banks love that, loan brokers and loan officers as well.
And what's the third one?
Oh, very important, because this could be like a block on the road. No derogatory comments.
Negative comments, collections, charge-offs, late payments. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, that's not always the end of the road. We do have people we can bring in who can help repair that.
Yes.
But better not to have it in the first place.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, Karol.
No, wonderful.
That's everything for today.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we look forward to you joining us on our next episode. Thanks.
Yes, coming soon. Bye. Adios.
Adios.